Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a wonderful Monday, February the 7th. The LA Galaxy threw their third preseason game, the first one in front of fans. We get to watch it. We got to see it. You either streamed it on LAGalaxy.com, you either got blocked because you're out of state, or maybe you streamed it on our Discord, or you were at the game. It was a lot of fun, so hopefully you got to see it. Hopefully you got to enjoy it. A little bit of 4-0 win for the LA Galaxy in preseason. You don't get that very often. We have a Costa tracker. You wanted the Costa tracker? We have a Costa flight tracker. We know where he's at. We're going to show you where he's at during this podcast. We're going to get you and sort of give you an idea of when his arrival is planned and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So hang in there. We're going to talk about a lot of that stuff. Kevin Cabral, obviously, is going to be a big topic of discussion. Christian Pavon towards the end of the show as well. So a lot of stuff to get to, a lot of things to talk about. To help me do that tonight, the Panda is in Ontario at the Fury game. We're going to call him here in a couple minutes, but here in the studio, or not in the studio, but in the chat box here, is Mr. Christian Miles stepping in. Christian, how's it going, buddy?
Great, buddy. To show my dedication to COG, I've forsaken the season 3 finale of Daniel the Tiger so we could talk a little Galaxy. So I'm excited. I'm no panda, but I'm no panda, but I'm excited.
That's okay. Sometimes it's better not to be a panda. I was going to say, I wanted to, we're both fathers. We were both talking a little bit about dad life before. I want to tell you about the story of my $6 Mario Kart Hot Wheels that has now cost me $38. If you would like to hear this story real quick, it's just an opener while everybody's sort of here. It's just an opener. So I went to Target with my 2-year-old, and we go, and he's all excited because usually I give him a Hot Wheels car, right? They're 99 cents. I'm like, here, buy a Hot Wheels car. So we get to the Target line. There's no Hot Wheels cars. They're like all sold out. There's none. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, and now he's like heartbroken already. I was going to get a car. Yeah, I'm like, I know, buddy, I know. And so we go over, there's one, Mario Kart, right? So there's a little Mario Kart Hot Wheels figure, and it's Mario, and he's in a go-kart, and I show it to my son, and I'm like, what do you think of this one? And he's like, oh, yeah, okay. And I look at it, it's like $6. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't care. Go ahead and grab it. So we leave. He plays with it all day. He's showing everybody his Mario Kart. He goes to get a haircut later that evening. He leaves the car at the haircut place, right? We know it's gone, the whole deal. So now he's asking for Mario that whole night. So we know on Sunday we have to go back to Target and get another Mario. So we go back to Target on Sunday to get a Mario. Do they have Mario? Of course not. They don't have a single Mario, but you can get a 4-pack that includes the Mario. Now it's Mario in a shoe instead of Mario more in like the kart form, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Hooked me right in. So we bought that, right? That was like $25 or something like that in order to get the 4 with Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong and all these other things. So we do that. So I'm like, I can't believe this. But he's still asking for the other one. So my wife goes on Amazon. Is like, I'm just going to order it on Amazon because I don't need this. So she like orders it on Amazon. It's another $7 or $8 by the time we get it and the whole deal. So it's on its way. And then, wouldn't you know, Sunday evening at about 4:30 p.m., 5 p.m., he walks over and shows us both of his Mario cars. It's been in the house the whole time. So now we're going to have 3 Marios. There we go. So that's how one Mario can turn into like $36 real quick. So there's my Mario story.
You're so daddish. You're so daddish. I love it, but I can totally identify.
You're like, come on, if it's $6 going to make them happy, I want to pay the $6, right? Yeah,
exactly.
even if it ends up being
4
36.
times over.
Yeah, exactly. Over and over again. So anyway, that's what we got. Exciting for the LA Galaxy, I think. You get a preseason game. I get it. Okay, first of all, I think everybody needs to raise their right hand and repeat after me. I will not get excited about a preseason game. I will not get excited about a preseason game. I will not get excited about a preseason. Just say it for the rest of the show.
Not get excited about a preseason game, but I am excited. I can't help it.
Of course you are, because everybody is. Kevin Cabral was standout in this game. Quite honestly, had 3 or 4 really good chances, looking dynamic, scored 2 goals. So that's big. We're going to talk about Kevin Cabral. We're going to talk about all that, but we want to get to Diego Costa first. And before we talk about the tracker and where everything, I mean, Christian, you've been following along with the saga. We've conversed on Twitter about it. We haven't had a chance to talk face to face, so to speak, about Douglas Costa. But what do you think of Douglas Costa?
Oh, well, I tweeted out myself, right when this was kind of bubbling to the surface. It was kind of a high risk, high reward. I know you and Sophie and you and Hammer and Panda talked about it. And it's a guy that he has such a tremendous upside, so much potential. But, let's be honest, this guy has a history of some attitude problems, and he's also got a history of injury problems the last few years, and there's a reason why his contract wasn't renewed. And that's kind of tempered my excitement. In terms of raw physical talent, what Sophie, I thought, said last week on your show was very apropos. This guy will be, including Chicharito, the best player on this team, bar none. His physical attributes, his that burst of pace that he used to have about 4 or 5 years ago with Bayern Munich, and his technical abilities, by far make him the best player. Getting the best out of him is going to be that. It's a gamble, I think, Josh. I don't know. How do you see it?
Well, you know what? I was going to tell you how I was going to see it, but first, I'm going to bring in our guest. He's at the Ontario Fury game. Mr. Baxter, are you there, sir?
Yes, your Fury are up 7-1 over Tacoma at halftime. It's an exciting game. All 300 fans are all thither.
They're a tither. I was going to say, how did you get pulled out to an Ontario? By the way, I people know this if they've been around me long enough. I was a part of the supporters group whenever they were the Anaheim Bolts in Anaheim, playing at the Anaheim Convention Center. In fact, I laid the turf a couple times because they needed help laying turf for that team and doing that stuff. So they're out in Ontario now, which is good because then I can't lay turf for them, and that was not fun. But why are you out there?
I'm okay. I'm not. First of all, after that little joke, I'm not going to bag on these guys because they're the ownership here and the team and the players. They're serious about this. And you were just talking about Douglas Costa, and I'll get to my opinion on Douglas Costa in a minute. But when I was down in Brazil for the World Cup and then later for the Olympics, I talked to a lot of people involved in soccer down there, and because there's not a lot of open space in São Paulo and Rio and the large cities, a lot of those players, and we're talking about like Neymar, Juninho, Marcelo Sarvis, they all grew up playing futsal, which is, just because they had to play on like a basketball court or a tennis court. They didn't have a lot of room. And Neymar especially is one who says that taught him how to be a ball handler, how to get out of tight spaces, how to change from one foot to the other. That's what you see in this indoor soccer is tight spaces. It's very fast paced, as you know, because you said you used to go to games. So the skill set that some of these players learn here is it's fairly exceptional.
Oh, we're already gonna. Kevin is being sucked into the hole that Ontario is. Kevin, are you back now?
No, yeah, I'm not.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not. I don't think I'm going to be. What? Can you hear me? I don't think I'm going to become a.
Oh yeah, no, you're breaking up. I was going to say, I'll try to call you back here and we'll talk a little bit about.
Okay, how's it?
A little better. I don't know. We'll try for a little bit longer, and if it doesn't work, I'll just hang up on you. It's fine with me.
Am I back yet?
Yeah, you're there. You're there.
It?
Yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah. So anyway, I'm saying that I think the sport does have a purpose. It's not really soccer. It's more like hockey, but it is fun. It is exciting. You can see where some players could take these skills from certainly futsal, indoor soccer, to the bigger game. But anyway, the reason I'm out here is JP Dellacamera, who's a broadcaster. He's in the Hall of Fame, the National Soccer Hall of Fame. He is now working in the front office of Major Indoor Soccer League and asked me to come out and take a look. And so because of his invitation, I did come out. But I heard a little bit about what you guys were saying about Douglas Costa, and it dovetails nicely with this because, as I said, a lot of Brazilian players grow up playing futsal, which is like indoor soccer. I think this is a big gamble too. I think it's a huge gamble. And when you look at Douglas Costa, is 31. He'll be 32 by the end of the season. He hasn't played he's only played more than 27 league games in a season one time in his career. He's fought injuries. Last year, he actually got talked to a sports psychologist because he was ready to retire. He was so down with all the injuries. And he's also had motivation problems that, there was one point when he was playing in Italy where he just flew back to France for a birthday party for Neymar and got in a car accident that same week. And he didn't violate any team rules, but it was like, what are you doing? You got to be a little more serious about your training and being available to the team. So I think they're fighting two things. The health is number one, but throughout his career, he's dodged claims of being, not dedicated, not motivated, not mentally there. Those are the two things that the Galaxy had with Gio Dos Santos when he was here. So I think this is could be another $5 million gamble.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. As has been reported and as being reported, this is still a done deal. It's not like anybody can change their mind on this, Kevin and Christian, and so it feels like now it's at a point where the Galaxy have to integrate him into this team, which is going to be difficult because now they're already on a 20 days. I haven't said it yet, but 20 days until the LA Galaxy kick off against New York City FC. The Galaxy headed out to the desert here tomorrow afternoon. They'll train in the morning at Dignity Health Sports Park. We'll head out to the Coachella Valley there for the next 4 or 5 days after that. They'll basically play a game on Thursday and a game on Sunday and return Sunday evening. So this is going to be the amount of time that they have to sort of get him in and get him acclimated to this. Kevin, before we let you go, this isn't what Greg Vanney wanted. He told us that he wanted to have everybody in quickly and get everybody in camp as soon as possible. This seems like this is going to be a difficult task to get him in and ready to play with this team.
Well, I think he's fit as he is going to be, as again with the injury problems and fitness problems throughout his career. He's already gone through preseason with his club in Brazil. They just started the season, so he may not be game fit, but he's not starting from a standing start. So that is kind of on the side. As Christian said, yes, he is. He's probably going to be, as soon as he gets here and puts on a Galaxy jersey, he's probably going to be the most talented player in Major League Soccer, I think. But it's getting him to display that. And, Vanney talked about that. We had a talk in January, and Vanney talked about that. He said, his skill set, he is one of the best players in the world when he is fit. And I've rarely heard a coach sort of throw cold water in his own praise of a player like that. And I think that's the big problem for the Galaxy. And I think you're right. I don't think this is the player Vanney wanted. As we know, Bruce Arena did not want Gio. Bruce Arena did not want Steven Gerrard. Those were players they didn't need. They were strong in the midfield both times. They brought in these players, designated players, for a lot of money. It just seems too familiar, and we're in a situation where Chris Klein is in the last year of his contract. I believe Dan Beckerman is as well.
Right.
I don't know if this is necessarily a Hail Mary pass, but I just see the signing. As Christian said, there's a huge possible upside to this, but the downside, as it was with Gerrard, as it was with Gio, it's right there. And if this doesn't work, this could be a real disaster. And you and I, Josh, talked earlier today. This doesn't seem to be a position of need for the Galaxy. He's a winger. They have Grant Sear. Cabral's playing well in the preseason. Granted, it's the preseason. They have Efrain Alvarez. They have wingers. What they really need is a central attacking midfielder, and they haven't found that person yet. And I don't think Douglas Costa is going to be that person.
All right. Well, I know Christian and I are certainly going to talk about that. So, Kevin, thank you for calling in, buddy. We appreciate it. Thanks for checking out the Ontario Fury for us as well.
You actually called me, in any case.
However that works. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
All right. There goes the Panda out there at the Ontario Fury game. I will say this, and I was pushed. Kevin and I did have this discussion earlier, and I said yes and no, in terms of position and need or not. If he is indeed the most talented player, on the team and possibly, some would say maybe even top in MLS. If he is that guy, you can always use that guy. It doesn't matter because it means he's pushing somebody else out of the way. So position of need, no. Me personally, I would love to have a central attacking midfielder I know can play 65, 80 minutes a game, control things, really push things up, when instead it seems like it may be a platoon with Victor Vasquez and with Efrain Alvarez and with Sasha Kljestan in there as well. There's a lot of stuff to sort of figure out how everything lines up in that. Now, Before we get to talking more about Costa, let's get you to the Costa tracker and the Costa update. If I had more time, I was going to put together a really cool graphic and make noises. I told Christian like it was going to be like an alarm and there's like a flight coming in.
Sirens.
Sirens,
whistles.
Exactly. So here's what we're seeing right now. Fabrizio Romano tweeted out a picture, and clearly, I mean, this is Douglas Costa, like basically sending it to Fabrizio Romano, just FYI. I mean, you can sort of see how this is all lining up, or his agent is, or something like that. So we got a picture. All right, we're going to go down the rabbit hole, Christian. Do you think everybody's prepared for the rabbit hole I'm about to take them down? I don't think.
I sense a tracker. I sense some charts. I don't know what's coming, but bring it on, big boy.
There are a couple things that I get really excited about. Okay, we know it's soccer, talking about soccer and podcasting, yes. Those things, right? We know that it's trains, because if you've been following around, I love my trains, and I've been modeling and doing all sorts of stuff. Then that's my break from soccer. The third thing, which we know on this podcast, I have talked about many, many times and have a passion for, is flying. And I can tell you that from this picture, we are able to deduce a whole bunch of things. This single picture, Douglas Costa is sitting with a logo behind him. That is the logo of United Airlines. It's actually, if you really want to get it, it's actually a combined logo between United Airlines and Continental. Whenever they took over Continental and bought them, they combined the world sort of globe into the back of that logo. So that's why you see that globe in the background. But that is United Airlines, what it is. Now, what we can also tell in this picture is that there are overhead bins on either side of his head, Christian, which means that he's probably flying on a wide-body aircraft, because that would have a center aisle that has overhead bins, right? So that means there's like 2 aisles. We call wide bodies anything that has 2 or more aisles on it, okay? So there's 2 aisles. He's probably sitting in right? He's probably sitting in the center section. We know that because we can see both sides of that, and otherwise he would be up against a window. He's in Polaris, which is their first class section of things as well. So we can deduce that. So we're starting to put some things together here. Well, if you really want to start putting things together, you can try to find nonstop flights from Brazil and various cities into the United States. Now, what you're going to find, Christian, if you really start digging and dividing on this, is you're going to find that there is no direct flight right now from Brazil to LAX, right? So that one you have to cross out right away. That's not happening. There are none that are either from Sao Paulo or Rio, or we were even looking at Gremio and sort of like in little, like, could you have
Porto
taken
Alegre, yeah. I remember when I flew to Sao Paulo, it was direct. But
and I'm sure in most times there are. I think either in COVID times or today there wasn't, right? It's a long flight too, right? How long was your flight down to?
It's about 11 hours.
Yeah, it's you're going like halfway across the globe, maybe from north to south. So it's a long way. So what we know is, and what we were able to deduce, is that Douglas Costa left from Rio, may have had to fly down to Rio in order to actually get to Rio. GIG is the airport code at Rio. He's now flying into Houston, and that makes a ton of sense. Flights coming from South and Central America often hit Houston as their gate point into the United States. So that United is that United plane, by the way, which is a 767-300. Just in case you ever wanted to see what one of those looks like. Basically, it looks like something like this, a United 767-300, and if you're on the podcast, it's a wide-body airplane. It looks very much like a 757, except it has a wider body. I don't know. A 757 looks like a Hawk.
The same model as the COG jet, right?
That's right. A 757 looks like a Hawk, by the way. If you've ever seen it, it does. It has like talons that come down, right? This is more like full-body, like maybe a Hawk that ate a snake or something like that. So that's what a 767. So that is traveling up there. It is currently expected to land in Houston about 5:30 a.m. Houston time. Okay, so that is a long flight, flying overnight, landing in Houston. If you play the game and you sort of figure out what other things can happen after that, you would think that he would be arriving in Los Angeles after landing in Houston somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. in the morning. That seems to be where this is going. So the tracker shows him right now, and this is even a little bit behind, and I'll try to snap another screenshot before we end this, but this was just before the show started. Somewhere in the center of South America there, climbing up towards the top of South America.
He's flying over the Amazon right now, it looks like. There's
some weather buildup in that area, too, some thunderstorms and stuff like that, which you would expect.
I got to take my hat off to you, Josh. This is impressive.
I mean, I do try. I do try. This is Jared Dubois, former co-host, was on Twitter, and he was like, he goes, I'm always amazed that Josh's obsession with flying usually comes out flying colors whenever it's transfer time, right? It's like, yep, transfer tracker time. Let's find out where he's at. So anyway, so that's the plan right now. So Douglas Costa on his way to the U.S., going to land in Houston, and then Houston to L.A. That is the entry to Los Angeles and how he will be able to get here.
And straight to training, right?
Well, the interesting thing was Fabrizio had to, of course, tweet this out today because he said that there was an announcement expected today. And so we were all sitting around twiddling our thumbs waiting for a Monday announcement, and it did not come, right? And probably didn't come because Douglas Costa was not in the United States yet, however that happens. Now, here's the other thing that we know, Christian, from previous transfers. Yeah. Is that it could take a while for him to technically have a visa and have all the paperwork available and ready to quote unquote play. So I wouldn't be surprised if his stay in Los Angeles is actually kind of short as they work on some paperwork and do some other things, and he may have to fly back to Brazil, or he may have to fly somewhere else in order to get a visa and then re-enter that, because he's probably coming on a quick business visa or something like that only is valid for a short amount of time, and then he's got to leave and enter back in on the P1 visa.
Right. Yeah, that's what happened with Grand Cyr, I believe, and I think Cabral as well. They had to go back as well. Yeah,
there's certainly, and sometimes you can fly down to Mexico and just do it from Mexico, and sometimes you have to fly back to the country of origin, and it's nightmare. So expect that as well. And like we said, 20 days until the LA Galaxy play against New York City FC. That's less than 3 weeks. We're inside the zone. Yesterday was 3 weeks. So we'll see how that goes and sort of pay attention to where all of that heads and all these different things. And so we're going to see how he comes into the country and whether or not the LA Galaxy will announce him before he's already played 3 games or something like that. That's always our little joke, is that sometimes we feel like they're a little behind on the announcement. Everybody knows it's coming. All right. Everybody knows it's coming.
Yeah. That horse has left the barn. What do you think? Training by, optimistically mid next week, maybe, or week following?
I have questions about the whole timeline. Let's just put it that way for right now. I have questions about the whole timeline.
I'm saying week after next. I'm going to go out on a limb and say week after next.
Here's what I imagine will happen, is that he's going to come in, and I imagine he'll start training and doing stuff with the team, even though he's not supposed to, and he'll do that because that's usually what happens. He'll come in, he'll do some stuff, and then at one point they'll figure out the visa stuff, and he'll fly out and then fly back. So I'm hoping that by, let's say February 19th is sort of a day where it feels like a teeter-totter in terms of if he's going back or if he's going forward or anything like that. So after February 19th, I expect him to be with this team. And
that should give him 8 days before the opener against NYCFC, which ain't a lot of time to get match fit and up to speed, and you've got language issues and all that as well.
It's going to be an adjustment. So, here's the good news. And as we move away from Costa, and again, we have pointed out where we think he is, I'm just going to tell you where I know he is, where he's going, that type of thing. We think that's where everything's going to land, and he'll be in LA tomorrow. I'm sure you can pick up the COG Twitter feed in the morning. I'm sure I'll be tracking it as he crosses from Houston to LA as well. So as we sort of do that and get that, there is something to talk about in terms of cohesiveness and in terms of team whenever we talk about the Galaxy's win. Now, a 4-0 win for the LA Galaxy over the New England Revolution, the defending Supporters Shield champions, all in preseason. It doesn't mean anything, right? I will not get excited about a preseason game. 2 goals from Kevin Cabral, one on either side of the half, and then you had a goal from Joveljic as well in the 63rd minute, just 3 minutes since he came onto the field as well. Sasha Kljestan basically got his first touch and feed to Joveljic as well. So that was that. Chicharito got an assist. Araujo got an assist. I mean, really, when you look at it, I don't think you get more excited about the guys who are making plays or the guys who you need to make plays. And we sort of said this in the first 2 games. The guys who are scoring goals are the guys who you wanted to be scoring goals. It's like, this is perfect. It's not a bunch of defenders scoring here, Christian, from what I can see.
It's not the set piece dead ball and the odd scramble, excluding the own goal, but which was created from the inspiration of Efrain. And I think it's a point I think you're making, and it's a very good point, because Cabral last year just didn't hit on all cylinders. He was off color. He was lightweight on the ball, and this I mean, I know it's only preseason, and I know we're not going to get excited, I swear, but he looked much more confident. He looked a little bulkier, more muscular, more confident, that's for sure, and goals will give you that. I think it's, 3 goals in preseason. But yeah, he definitely looked apart, and I think, we've sat in on enough of these press calls from Greg Vanney, who's just emphasized he is so happy to have players from day one as opposed to, trying to do things on the fly as they did last year when he had about 4 or 5 players, which is, almost half of your first team coming in the middle of the season and trying to adjust and, acclimate from foreign cultures. So this is, as far as a preseason game, look, you don't get excited, but you couldn't have asked for it to go any better, and you couldn't have asked more of the players to score and the right players to contribute than we did. And the players that you want to have meaningful contributions really did so in a bright and emphatic way.
Yeah, they did. And if you want something that really doesn't matter at all, I have your preseason goal leaders. Kevin Cabral with his 2 goals takes over the lead with 3. Farai Mutatu has 2 goals. Raveloson 1, Dunbar 1, Alvarez 1, Chicharito 1, Grandsir 1, and Joveljic 1. So those are your preseason goal scorers so far. I will say this, 3rd straight game, Christian, as well. 3rd straight game, the LA Galaxy have scored 3 or more goals. I think they scored 5 in the first one, 5-4, and then they had a 3-0, and then they have a 4-0. So 2 back-to-back shutouts as well, which I think we'll talk about the defense here in just a minute. Hey, Christian, why don't you turn your camera off and turn it back on? Just hit the camera button and see if it'll refresh and come back for us here in a second. Or if we lose you completely, that's always a possibility as well. So, yep, there we go. Okay. Here's what we have whenever we're looking at the starting lineup and everything that was going on with the LA Galaxy. You had Jonathan Bond in the goal. You had Kelvin Leerdam playing at the right back position. You had Sega Coulibaly and Nick DePuy in the center. You had Raheem Edwards out on the left-hand side. We'll talk about that here in a 7. Kevin Cabral on the right. Mark Delgado, Raveloson in the center as well. Samuel Grandsir on the left midfield side. Then you technically had Victor Vasquez playing in the cam role as he does. I'm going to talk about the switch-offs that were happening. It's something that definitely is a question for me for Greg Vanney next time I talk to him. But you have Victor Vasquez and then you had Chicharito up top. Now, if I do this correctly and I look at this and sort of say, okay, where was everybody? They were playing more in like a 4-2-3-1. But when you say that, Vasquez, Chicha, and Cabral all were able to switch with each other and did a lot. I think Cabral played a little more wing than we've probably seen him since last season. Started a lot of his runs outside, which was good. Started his runs from a little bit deeper as well, which was good. And both of his finishes, by the way, was just... See, that's whenever you're talking about the ability to switch... Chicha had dropped back into the midfield in order to get the ball. He had moved forward, and then there was a turnover on the left shorthand side. A quick turnover. Chicha gets the ball. He turns, and there's Cabral already making the run. Great pass from Chicha. Have to give him that because the space doesn't get open. Cabral with the perfect touch. Calm, collected, complete efficiency and movement, which with him, I sometimes feel like there's a lot of wasted movement. Like he's moving, but why is he moving and what is he doing? Efficiency and movement. Only touched the ball a number of times he needed to and got rid of it as soon as he needed to and fired in past the goalkeeper. So, I mean, when we look at just the build up to that play, Christian, and how everything sort of played out, I don't know that the Galaxy could ask for anything more with Chicha being a provider, with Mark Delgado being in there. I think Raheem Edwards may have also been on that side on the turnover as well. There was a lot of pinching. It was perfect for me. That's how it should look.
Yeah, I thought that we saw a lot of good movement from Cabral last year, and I thought he put himself in great positions. But his Achilles heel was always the end product, and it wasn't so much his first touch. I always thought he put himself in great positions. It was his second touch and his decision making, and that has a lot to do with learning, confidence, and just growth, and that's where we've seen the biggest increase, exponentially so, from the end of last season towards the first few games into this preseason. Nice to see, and it's something that it also plays to the strengths of likes of a Chicharito, because how many times we see him drop into a deeper role, trying to facilitate matters and trying to find the game, especially when there is a dearth of playmaking creativity in the center of the park underneath those strikers, and that's what's caused Chicharito to come and try and find the game and almost facilitate and play that role of creative playmaker. Something that we're probably going to see a lot of him, I expect, here in 2022 to do that. And when you have a player like Cabral that can run off of him like that, I think that really is going to play into that interchangeability that you were just talking about, but it's also going to play into interchangeability with other guys, like we talked about with Grand Serie, even Kljestan able to make late runs, and Ravelis, I think is going to be, more of that number 8 guy this year than we saw last year. So, yeah, I was really pleased with the end product. I mean, that's the thing that really stood out, and nice to see that understanding between Chicha and Cabral, the youngster, who I'm sure Chicha has become somewhat of a mentor for him. So, bright signs.
Yeah, the interchangeability is really interesting to me because you had Vasquez, who would sometimes be that up top link. As Chicha dropped back a little bit, Vasquez would move up into that and occupy that forward space, which I think is a great space for him as well. I mean, you have a very creative guy on the ball. That's You want him on the ball, right? You need him on the ball, quite honestly. He is one of those guys who is going to be your central attacking midfielder, and so you sort of need him in positions to make a difference and make plays. When he's up top like that, I don't see him as a goal scorer. I still see him as a provider, right? Which is, if you're going to find him in that advanced position, he's going to get the ball and he's going to turn and he's going to distribute to somebody that's going to be for the goal most of the time, unless somebody just sort of gives him that opening.
He's interesting because he has that tendency to float wide and drift out wide is predominantly on the right hand side. So technically, Vasquez is as good as anybody, but it just doesn't seem to be in his natural inclination and the way to play to just occupy that traditional number 10 role, which I think he has the technical skills to actually accomplish and play, but it just doesn't seem to come naturally to him. He seems to be more comfortable, drifting wide, predominantly on the right or even on the left at times, and try and play those long balls, play the diagonal as well, which will be good in stretching defenders, but still, I think it points to a glaring issue that you were talking about, and people have talked about on Discord and Twitter, is that there is a lack of creativity just a little bit underneath. Having the bite of a guy like Delgado, which for me is just, I'm so happy that we have a player like that now, because I've been screaming for it for about 4 or 5 years. To have he's an out and out number 6. He can get fired. He and Ravelis are going to interchange, but he has the bite, and we need the spine, and he is going to be, the foundation of that midfield from which they build upon and build their transition. And he's a guy that plays to his strengths. And you go back to the comments from Greg Vanny after the game. He's a guy that he's not good dwelling on the ball, but the way he can transition from defense to attack and something he prides himself on, he can do what 2 players done in one position.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Greg called him the great balancer, right? Or he's a time creator, right? He creates time for other players. So having heard Greg say this on Thursday, I was very much like, I'm just going to sit here, and one of the great things about going to watch live soccer, you can just stare at one player. You don't have to watch where the ball is. Just watch him move. So I watched Mark Delgado, which, by the way, that's a man. Okay, Mark Delgado's a man. I can't call him Marky Delgado.
Marky.
No more Marky. He's a man, and
no more.
Yeah, he's maybe 26, but he's still a man.
I still remember him back in his day when they used to call him Broccoli. When he was back at the old Chivas Youth Academy, and he had this giant hair.
He's and Greg's talked about him. Greg talked about IDing him at that time and sort of saying, man, the work rate that he puts in, and that's what you saw. I mean, the LA Galaxy, and it's something they haven't done in a while. Again, preseason game, I won't get excited about it. I thought New England was horrible. I thought their midfield was completely out of sync. I thought that their offense was out of sync. They looked out of sync from defense all the way to the front. And while I think Kobe was suggesting that perhaps Bruce was bruising this game a little bit, I would also say that Bruce probably didn't want to lose 4-0 either. And so it was one of those where, Bruce probably was like, hey, go out there and give it the old college try, but also don't get embarrassed. How about you guys play?
They were dreadful, Josh.
They were
horrible, and it kind of feeds into that anti-legit narrative too. But that's ridiculous. But they were. I was actually very shocked at how sluggish and slow. I mean, they were still in the off season, still perhaps the Supporter Shield hangover. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they had to go to an MLS Cup to get over, right? They got some rest time. The cockiness that comes from a 4-0 win in this preseason. Let me tell you. But no, you saw that. But I thought Mark Delgado controlled that midfield. I thought Velison controlled that midfield. I thought, anytime New England tried to penetrate through the center, that Delgado plugged a lot of the lanes, and they looked confused. It almost looked, by the way, I was watching Sebastian Lletget play a little bit just to sort of see what was going on. It was almost looked like he was afraid to pass the ball backwards because he forced so many passes into bad places and different things. I was like, yep, they're in his head already. And so everybody was sort of like, he's like, don't pass the ball backwards in LA, not right now, because that's what everybody says. And it felt like that was sort of one of the things coming. And Mr. Pavino points it out, the Champions League is coming soon for them as well. And they need listen, it was one preseason game again. Let's not say that they're a horrible team. You might have to play them in the postseason sometime. I'm sure that they'll be much better whenever that happens. I still expect them to be a very good team. Josie Altidore was down on the bench, by the way, pretending to hide, but not really. So that was an interesting part of that. But Mark Delgado for me was just such a fun guy to watch in this sort of setup and everything. Now, we talked about how just absolutely poor New England was, and having said that, they created probably 3 or 4 really dangerous chances, and they probably should have scored on 2 or 3 of them. And so when you look at a 4-0 and you want to talk about the defense, I mean, we can say back-to-back shutouts. One was against an NISL team, so we'll push that one aside. The other one was against a team that absolutely should have scored but didn't because they were inept for whatever reason on the night. The Galaxy's defense was slow to react. They pushed into some bad areas. I think Greg talked about it again. And he was more calm, I think, than everybody else who was sort of watching a 4-0 game, and saying, "Oh, get excited about it." He was like, "No, we're happy for Kevin. We're happy for guys like Joveljic." By the way, Joveljic scored the hardest goal of the game. Amazing. That we'll talk about that here in a second. But he was saying, I think the things that we still need to work on is, this team needs to understand and realize the danger they put themselves in and be able to keep themselves out of that. They have to minimize mistakes. And he's talking about defense, but he's not talking about the back line. He's talking about the back line and the midfield and how the wingers come back and support in the defense and different things like that. There were times there where the danger bell was ringing and the Galaxy were not reacting to that danger bell. And again, they should have, easily they should have scored a couple goals. And I think that's still a big concern right now, even with, and we'll point this out, Raheem Edwards is probably not the starting left back. Jorge Villafana probably is still that guy, just in terms of reliability. And I can't even say that with him being injured, but the veteran presence there is Jorge Villafana, stay-at-home left back for the most part. And then on the right side, a guy who had just come back from Mexico camp, Julian Araujo should be starting in place of Leerdam. Whether or not Leerdam then moves inside and takes over for either Koulibaly or Nick DePuy, and then Derek Williams was missing. So Derek Williams was diagnosed with a first grade or low grade calf strain. Greg says he was hopeful that he would get him back and integrated into training this week, and that they were just being careful with it and wanted to make sure that he rested. But this is sort of becoming a thing with him, so we'll just keep an eye on that. And then you have Jorge Villafana, who's still dealing with the knee contusion he had last year. And Greg says he's 95%, but there's still a couple movements where he feels it, and they're trying to make sure that he doesn't feel that knee contusion. And it's just like, that's a rough road for that guy. He's been the whole offseason. Last game was November 7th, by the way, just in case you were trying to remember when that was the Galaxy actually played. Hasn't played all these months and gets into preseason and still isn't 100% back and ready to go. So that defense is missing starters too, Christian.
And he was out, if you recall, towards the tail end of the season when he lost his spot for the last 7, 8, 10 games, something as such. So that's a little concerning here, and you can throw in his age. It is a little concerning, and fullback has been such a big issue for the Galaxy for the last 5 or 6 years. But Leerdam coming in, thought he did a good job. I thought Araujo was magnificent. I mean, just strength of strength. The kid is, despite MLS and what they trained their talking heads to say about the 5 best fullbacks and right backs in Major League Soccer, Julian Araujo, hands down, in that list, if not at the top of that list, can we say all day long.
Yeah,
but it was great to see him come on, and it's interesting to see the comments about the defensive issues you talked about here. And Vanny outlined 3 things. You don't give the ball away in vulnerable areas, which was something that was just recurring constantly last season. And transition defending had to be a little bit better, and overall just trying to stay connected in collective shape. And I've said this, for the last 3 or 4 years. The Galaxy are too easy to get at.
Right.
You cross the halfway line, you're running downhill, and you don't give your back four a chance because they're running right down your throat, and there's been nothing to buffer that. And that's something that Vanny, I think, is saying here, that collectively as a whole, it's got to start. It doesn't start with the back four. And you can sit there and blame all your goals and the poor defensive record. And it has been poor. I'm not defending the record, but what I'm defending is how it's not exactly all the back four's fault here. They get no support, no protection. And, once that ball is turned over in a vulnerable area, putting themselves in positions to defend better and also their intensity to pursue and try and win it back. We're not talking about a gegenpressing. We're just talking about a basic team shape to be harder to play against. And I think that's kind of what they need to be right now. And that was the main area that he targeted for improvement. And that, to me, is, going to be the sink or swim point. This team's going to get goals. We know that, right? I mean, goal scorers abound. And with Costa coming in, that even bodes better. But if he can hit the strides that we think he can. So there are some issues at the back that are a little concerning for me.
Yeah, it's still one of those things. Again, I did think it was interesting, and I kind of like what Vanny was doing. He had Julian Araujo, who was relatively fresh. I know he played, about 16 minutes or let's see, was it 16 minutes or was it a little more than that? Maybe it was 28 minutes, something like that in that Mexico World Qualifier.
Oh, yeah, he came out like that. Yeah, it was something late in the
second half.
Second half, yeah.
And so he got the end of that. So he definitely had fresh legs. You could have started Julian Araujo at right back. Why didn't Greg Vanny start Araujo with that first team? And that was absolutely a first team start in terms of everybody who I have available, the best I have available is going on this field. That's what Greg Vanny put out with that lineup. There wasn't guys like he held in reserve, like he was going to play for the second 45. He was putting, why was Julian Araujo not there? It's because he has been away from the team and he wanted that cohesiveness that has been building in training the last couple of weeks. Yeah. He wanted to get this win. He wanted these guys to feel the confidence. And Julian Araujo is great. And you saw him come in and, again, dynamic. And playing against the second team sort of in New England.
Just another level.
He is hyped up. He had some great crosses in there. There was a lot of really good. The own goal was part of a little bit of his production in there. Ephraim got in there. Jalen Neal on that second team, sort of putting his stamps. Jalen Neal almost got 2 goals, and I don't think he touched either one of the balls. But one of them did go in as the own goal, and one of them also was like real close to being in there, and he was right now. So Jalen Neal causing a lot of problems, and I thought Jalen played well on defense for his little bit of time there as well. So. I was happy with that.
I'm a huge fan of his. I've had a chance to catch him at G2 a lot of times last season. He missed a lot of it out, and I had a chance to talk with the previous coaching regime at G2, and the kid's potential of Jalen Neal is immense, and there's no doubt he's going to be an MLS player. And some of these members of the previous coaching staff was also telling me, it's not just MLS. This kid has the potential. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves, but there is that possibility that, this is a guy that could be making a move overseas someday if he continues his current trajectory. I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves, but that's the type of talent that you're dealing with right here. And I think for me, the quality that stands out with him is the calmness and composure on a ball for a kid his age.
Yeah.
And his command of the area and able to play out. He's that modern central defender that can play out of the back, and I think that's the way Vanny eventually wants to play. And I think Vanny's got to be licking his chops having a player like that. He's not ready for prime time yet.
No, but he's close. But Greg talked about him already, and he was sort of like, I can see it in him. I can see, and I was talking to Jalen's mom about it as well, and I'm like, I sort of sent her the clip of Vanny talking about Jalen. She's like,
great Twitter follow too, by the way.
Right. Galaxy Mom, right? Is
Galaxy
GLX?
Mom, I think, or something. Yeah.
But you can go see. I sent her that, and I'm like, Greg's high on Jalen. I mean, listen, I am a sucker for defenders. Everybody knows this. I will root on a defender the whole time. I think there's still some serious questions. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Jalen Neal is going to get first team minutes this year. And really get a chance to prove himself. And once he gets there, if he starts playing the way that I think we have seen him play, you may not be able to get him off the field. He might be one of those players where, like, you put him out there and he gets some exposure, and then maybe the second time he comes back, you're like, why would I take him off the field? It's one of those. It's like, and we'll see. He's young, and I can see it.
And that's a position that requires so much understanding and reading, Ben. After watching him, it's funny that the mistakes that are made of players in that position of his age, he doesn't make those mistakes. Now, granted, he's not infallible. Some of the mistakes that I saw him make, which were very, very few at G2, were a situation where he was almost too calm on the ball, and too composed and dwelled on it perhaps a little bit long. But that's something that can be eradicated really easy, which I've already seen, that kind of come out of his game, and that's just intriguing to me, and that's where he stands apart. But it's one thing we got to throw in here too. With such a compact, condensed schedule, there's going to be a lot more squad rotation this year, I think, than we saw even with the craziness of COVID. So that will open the door further for players like Neil, to make meaningful contributions, as well as the squad is going to be tested in terms of depth this season. Well, kind of like we had in the last couple of seasons, but I think this year specifically with the condensed measure, the schedule, things moved up a month.
Yep.
The dog
U.S.
days of summer throwing,
U.S.
it's gonna be
Open
tough.
Cup. Yeah, U.S. Open Cup is going to come back into
Yes.
and play parts as well. So I mean, you got
I'm
that.
a fan.
Yeah. So you're going to see that. I want to talk about one of the other things. And by the way, quickly on Raheem Edwards and sort of that, I thought he was very good going forward. I liked his, it's not just all speed with him. I like the lanes that he chooses to run in. It's not always like right on the touchline. It's cut inside sometimes. It's, he varies sort of the attack and the way that he goes about running up that side. My only thing is that he is absolutely a wingback. And whenever he's a wingback, that means that you have no cover on that left back side. And we saw some of that getting exposed in that game. That was where a lot of the attacks were up that left-hand side when Raheem got caught forward. Listen, it's a story as old as time for the LA Galaxy, which is press forward. Julian Araujo does it on the right-hand side too. He'll run forward, and then he won't be able to get back in time. Somebody won't cover his position. You had Efrain Alvarez sometimes running back and trying to play defense, not his strong suit. So then you start getting beat, and it's like beat one guy, beat another guy, and then all of a sudden there's a shot on goal and a goal. So I like Raheem Edwards. I like where he's at. I would still like a stay-at-home left back more than anything. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. Edwards is probably going to get a lot of times if Villafaña continues to sort of have injury concerns.
Or, I'm just throwing this out here, Josh. It brings that tactical flexibility. And we just talked about, a guy like Neil, who's probably going to see some first-team minutes this season. You go to a three-back setup. You've got a prototypical wing back, one of the best in North America with, Julian Araujo. And you throw in a player like Leerdam, or rather Edwards, who could really play that role on the left-hand side. And that opens up to a different scheme that, could be a plan B.
Well, you can even go, like you said, you talked about Jalen. You can also talk about Leerdam, bringing him inside because he can play. He can play in that center back. Listen, in my mind right now, my starting mind, and I didn't get this on Saturday because Araujo wasn't ready to play in the first team. But in my mind right now, Leerdam may be the second center back that plays with Williams. And I kind of like that a little bit in my head. I haven't seen it yet, but in my head, I like the look of that. And I like the experience and the composure and the things that brings when it's not. Listen, I like Nick DePuy. I think he is head and shoulders above Sega Coulibaly right now. So I will say, Nick is there in that conversation, but I have a feeling Leerdam is going to end up being that second center back. I've said it on the show many times. It's probably never going to happen, but I'm going to say it for the entire year because Greg Vanney pointed it out when we were talking to him about Leerdam, is that he could come in and play that position.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see minutes there. That's the big, X factor. Who's going to be the partner with Williams, who you think is going to be the out-and-out starter? Will he go to the three-back setup? But yeah, I'm not. I love Sega Coulibaly's energy, but the mistakes are very concerning, and I'm not 100% sold on him.
No. Passing out of the back is a problem. Got caught a couple times in the game doing that. He can get pressured off the ball. You see it happen. And then the back shoulder runs, which we talked about last year, is that he tends to forget there's people running behind his back shoulder, and then he gets beat there. So again, it's just stuff to work on and things. The only other person I sort of wanted to highlight before we get done, two guys. One, Sasha Kljestan gets in the game and makes one pass, and of course he springs Joveljic in. And then, as I said, Joveljic scored the hardest goal. Kevin Cabral had the most flair, I think, on that second goal where he sort of hit it with the back heel. The back, he redirected it back across the goal, which, by the way, perfect place for him to do that. And I love the confidence that comes in with that. Such a huge boost for the
office.
Yeah, for that young man. But Joveljic had the hardest goal. Sasha Kljestan played him in, and then he was basically in a race to get to the ball with the other. I think it was either center back or the left back who was trying to chase him in. And his body positioning was so good. He shielded and took a step towards that defender and kept his body between him and the ball. And then he still was able to get himself set and fire. And that's a right-footed shot across his body with a goalkeeper coming out. A lot of times you have a tendency to want to try to hit that towards the center of the goal more than you want to hit it out towards the post. And he fought that tendency and sort of swiped across a little bit and had that ball curve out and go away from the goalkeeper and hit side netting on the left-hand side. It's a it was a good angle from the press box. I was looking like right down it whenever it happened. So it was one of those where you're like, oh, I can see the whole play. And when he hit it, I was like, wow, that's just such a great body positioning. And again, we're talking about the guy who was second in goals and assists per 90 last year was Joveljic behind Chicharito. So the kid comes onto the field, he's in for 3 minutes and he scores a goal.
He's a finisher. Yeah,
as Scott French says, that means he should have finished with 20 or 30 goals in that second half, right? You score one every 3 minutes or one every minute. But yeah, I love that development in him, and I think he is going to play a huge part in this team this year. There's something about him. I'm feeling that Joveljic is going to be a great player for the Galaxy this year.
Yeah, he's not the guy that's going to beat you for pace and run in behind. He's not that kind of guy, but he's a guy that can pick a spot. Has good strength, excellent technique, and we saw his finishing prowess there. Sasha Kljestan, doing the preseason Zidane treatment, I thought was just fantastic, coming off the bench and giving him a burst of energy, class, and one-touch passing that really able to transition into attack really well. I thought he also had a great relationship with Araujo, so that bodes well. Good signing, I think, too, for bringing Sasha back. Not just as you guys have talked on the pod before as a locker room guy, but
right.
The guy brings a lot onto the field here, and arguably one of the top performers for the Galaxy, down the stretch last season. So nice to see him off and running, and fresh legs coming in, and adds a different dimension and class to the attack.
Yeah, he really does. I want to get to some super chats before we sort of get to the last couple things.
The Herb Memorial super chat.
Yeah, no. Herb. By the way, there's a conspiracy theory that is going on in our Discord about Herb that has shooken me to my core. I said on last shows that I'm pretty sure that I have a sugar daddy in Herb, but everybody now has just made the connection that perhaps Herb isn't just Herb. Perhaps Herb is Herbalife. And maybe we've been shadow sponsored by Herbalife this entire time. I mean, maybe they're the ones who are going to buy the COG corporate jet. I don't know. Should I almost feel like I need a full investigation now, maybe a senatorial committee or something like that. Well,
yeah, but you'll be preoccupied with your Ontario Fury podcast too, as a spinoff, right?
That's true.
I'm not going to have time for that.
I'm going to jump right on it. David gave us a $5 super chat and says, are we being cautious, or are we so snake bit we're automatically pessimistic about new players? I would say that people are very much they want to put players in a box, Christian. They want to put them into this box. This is a young player. He's a developing player. This is a great player. He's at his peak. And this is an old player. He's well past his prime, and you're probably wasting money on him. I think the fact that the Galaxy have sort of gone through some of those machinations before. Giovanni Dos Santos left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. It's going to take a while, maybe 40 or 50 years before people stop talking about Giovanni Dos Santos and sort of what he brought to the Galaxy. I don't see, that's not a wound that is going to heal quickly unless the Galaxy can figure out how to win like an MLS Cup in the next 2 or 3 years to sort of wipe that from everybody's memories. So, I mean, do you there is a tendency to hate everything that comes out, though, right?
It did leave a bitter taste, and I can understand the trepidation. You kind of view any incoming move with a sense of skepticism. Now, certainly a player, going back full circle here, to like Douglas Costa, he fits that MO as players that had a lot of accolades and great success, but haven't really done much lately here. You throw in the injury problems and the questions of motivation and attitude. So. And it kind of feeds into that negativity and pessimism. That's one way of looking at it, and it's justifiably so because, you talk about the players that have been more missed than hit. There's plenty of them, and we don't need to go down that list. But there is no way to guarantee this, and you have to put your faith into this coaching staff here and put your faith into what they have done. And now Douglas Costa comes onto the scene, and it's 50-50 for me, Josh. And I understand that trepidation and why you would be guarded about it. I don't think you can let that envelop you and become pessimistic at the outlook, because then it just becomes self-defeating. I think you have to go, I'm a glass half full guy. So I think, you try and hope for the best here. It's a gamble, and you hope for the best and try and get the most out of it. And a lot of it comes down to the man management and motivational capabilities of this coaching staff and this team as a whole. Can they get the best out of these incoming players? And case in point will be Douglas Costa will be a real test of that. type of acumen, I think.
I'm kind of excited just to see it. It's kind of like an accident on the freeway. Like, you don't know what's up there, but you know you're going to look, you know you're going to slow down, and you're sort of, there's like this anxiousness. You're like, what is that? I need to see what that is. And I feel like that's what it is with Douglas Costa is it could be a train wreck. It could be bad. And that's going to be a whole... I mean, listen, this podcast does fine whether the LA Galaxy are really good or whether the LA Galaxy are really bad. Plenty for us to talk about either way. I am always on the side. I want players to succeed, right? And I will always be on that side of things. So if I'm biased towards anything, is I want people to succeed. And so hopefully that's the case, as Douglas Costa comes in and he's an absolute success, and the LA Galaxy suddenly are rocketed once again back up to the top of the Western Conference, and there's worldwide attention because Douglas Costa's playing well, and he's scoring goals, and he's feeding Chicharito, and there's that build on, that add-on sort of fame and notoriety that comes because of that, and people are excited to come out to see an LA Galaxy. They got this Brazilian Douglas Costa, which probably most people in LA have never heard of, and yeah, exactly, you have your Brazil shirt on. So anyway, so that's something. Here's Stefan says, gives us $10 and says, what happened to a number 10? And it's funny because I almost feel like Costa's going to be wearing the number 10. I feel like he's going to come in and get that 10 shirt. And
But he's not a 10.
But he's not a 10. He probably won't play in the center. But I was going to say, as I knock things over everywhere, if could you play him in the cam? Could you play him in that role?
I have seen him play, wide on the left and wide on the right. I don't see him as a 10. I just don't think that's his skill set. And there has also been a knock on Douglas Costa, that he's all pace and that he's able to beat his man one. And, there's some criticism that's gone as far as say he's a one-trick pony. And now that he's getting a little bit longer in the years now that, perhaps that pace has deteriorated. Has he been able to evolve his game? Like, we've seen other great players that have lost those faculties and those abilities, like a Cristiano Ronaldo, for instance, who had to adapt his game because of his deteriorating abilities to beat players on that burst of pace. Has he evolved in that same respect? No, he has not. I don't see him as a number 10. I still see him as a guy who has a lot to offer in terms of raw speed and athletic ability. He could drop that shoulder a la Kobe Jones and blow by somebody and create something. Will we get enough of those moments? That's the question. But he will bring a versatility. I mean, because he's, we've seen him play left. He played left for Bayern at times and for Juve. So yeah, it will bring that extra dimension of tactical flexibility as well. But in terms of underneath, no, and that continues to be an issue. As far as holes that need to be filled.
It almost feels a little bit like Bruce Arena, though. I mean, the Galaxy didn't really have a 10 for sometimes. It was Landon Donovan. It was Robbie Keane. It was David Beckham, right? Yeah. It was these guys where they would not play in that center spot, not create from that center spot, but there was enough creativity from the wings that they were able to do what they needed to do. So, I mean, that's what you're looking at.
I don't think it's really an Vandy's philosophy to play with a 10, personally.
Maybe it's not, and maybe that's why he's not concerned about it at all. We'll see if he wants to talk about Douglas Costa on our next call, which will be fun. I enjoyed him saying now's
just make sure it's your first question.
That's right. I'm going to definitely try to make sure of that. I'm sure he's like, oh, it's Josh again. He's either going to ask me about injuries or Douglas Costa. Ben gave us.
He knows it's coming. It's always the same characters, right?
He knows me. He understands that I have to ask the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ben, $5 super chat says, thanks for the aviation geeking out. Much appreciated. He said, is that a DC-10 or a 767? It's a 767-300. And the reason I can tell you that is that the DC-10 had a third engine that was on the tail, and this is as we call it, a 2-holer, not a 3-holer. So this is a 767-300. Yeah, just leave that one alone. That's on
that one.
It's about the engines, Christian. It's about the engines.
From the guy with the kitten bone shirt on.
This is a wonderful, wonderful kit, and I
love it.
I enjoy it.
What's that all about there?
It's they ran it last year, sort of a community kit. They do versions of color schemes that are sort of linked to it and different things. By the way, Lucio gives us a $5 super chat and says, glad I was able to catch the show live. Thanks for my weekly Galaxy fix. You're welcome. Let's go to Douglas Costa and the Douglas Costa tracker. This was about 5 minutes ago. Douglas Costa getting closer to the tip of South America there. The plane taking a little bit of a turn towards Houston in this particular one. So a little bit more northwesterly, we would say. Now, the funny thing is, Christian, as we are taught in math so many times, the shortest point between two distances is a straight line, right? That's what we're always told.
I think so.
Except if you're flying. And especially,
and
yes.
those parents out there doing Common Core math may not know that either. So.
Yeah, I was gonna.
The new math.
It's a lot of.
That's
stuff.
another podcast.
It is. But it's not true in aviation. Actually, the shortest the shortest distance between 2 points is actually a curved line. Whenever it comes to the globe, because a globe obviously is curved, right? So it's technically a curved line, but your heading would technically keep changing. So we fly headings like a magnetic heading, and whenever we fly north, that's like 360. That's what we call 360 degrees. If we fly south, it's 180, right? So you just sort of divide that up into 10 degree, 5 degree sections. That's how we fly whenever we fly. In this particular case, it would, you're flying a northerly heading, but by the time you get to Houston, you're probably turning enough that you're flying more of a northwester or westerly heading because it's a curved line, and your plane actually does keep continuing to turn and curve as you're doing these things. Also, it's worth pointing out that whenever you're doing long haul flights or anything like that, you would think that you would just go between 2 points, but there's a bunch of little points that they make you fly to in between, sort of like roadways in the sky that are inefficient and hopefully will go away someday. But that's where it is right now. So anyway, that's up on the Douglas Costa tracker. I just wanted to make sure that we got the last one. I know, a lot of stuff in there. I wanted to get to one more thing and just touch on this a little bit. And the only reason I want to touch on this is because it was in the news last week. We were talking about
Had to bring it up.
Here's the thing, is that we try to be as open and honest about things that we can when we know what's going on. And so sometimes we have to ask questions. So sometimes we don't know what's going on. Sometimes, what we think is going on isn't really what's going on. Here's the thing is that Boca came out and basically blamed the LA Galaxy, saying the LA Galaxy had a deal for them and then they didn't take them and it's all their fault and we could have sold them and now we're stuck with them and now we're not going to get any money and it's the Galaxy's fault. That was Riquelme, who's I think the vice president of Boca, former player as well. So Riquelme went out there and sort of blasted the LA Galaxy, which, by the way, I don't think the LA Galaxy are losing any sleep over. I don't think that was, actually a thing. Christian Pavon's agent went to Twitter basically and said, and talked to everybody, and said that the last time the LA Galaxy even had contact with Christian Pavon, directly with Christian Pavon, was February 10th of 2021. That's last February. So the idea... And by the way, that was after the allegations came out against Christian Pavon, the rape allegations. So the Galaxy were still interested in this at one point, but this is after. This is the last time they had any conversations with Christian Pavon, which would be needed in order to secure the player, right? There's always two parts to a transfer. Mm-hmm. The teams have to agree. The player has to agree to the new team. So there's always that thing. His agent went on and said, basically, Boca twice rejected the LA Galaxy proposal. They have the right, but they are the ones who are responsible, Boca, not the LA Galaxy. Now, it's a well-known fact that Boca and Christian Pavon do not get along and do not like each other, and so that's not a surprise that they're going in there. But I sort of took this and I went around and asked some questions. And I would feel that this was the last time the Galaxy actually had contact with Christian Pavon was in February. And that they may have decided, by the way, also that the offer was rejected twice, which means the LA Galaxy were trying to acquire Christian Pavon with those allegations out there. That's a different story, different time. Look at this. But having said that, Boca had a chance. Boca overplayed their hand so many times in this whole negotiation where we can get $30 million for him. Oh, we can get $40 million for him. And it's like, it's not going to happen. There were a lot of people who were interested in him. I was talking to one person who said they wouldn't be surprised if Christian Pavon has already pre-signed a contract with somebody and is already gone. And so whenever your contract is within 6 months of expiring, you can sign a pre-contract. You don't have to make that official. You don't have to make that announcement. You don't have to say who it is or where it's going to. But they would be surprised if he wasn't already gone right now as we speak.
Josh, it just reeks of sour grapes. I mean, no disrespect to Juan Roman or Quilmes. Just a fantastic player back in his day. But you said it right. How much more could they get wrong about this transfer? They have their chance now. That 6-month window now is opened up. And we know from, being around Christian when he was here, while he did like his time here in LA, his ultimate goal was to head overseas. And now he's getting to that point in his career where, he's probably 27-ish. That move has to be made realistically if it's going to happen. And even Christian Pavon, talk about the valuations and this extraordinary amount of money that Boca thought they were going to get, not going to happen because Pavon peak the highest bid that came in rumored was from Arsenal back in 2018 or so after the World Cup.
Right, which was about
25 million.
25, 30,
like
30. It was probably like 25 million pounds, so around 30 something million dollars.
So then this is peak Pavon, who had been in the shop window and the world's biggest stage. So no, the talks of 30 to 40 million, pure poppycock. It's ridiculous, and now it's sour grapes. And now Boca, this is the side of mismanagement, is going to get nothing for a player which they could have gotten, double-digit millions for at
absolutely.
one point. So.
And by the way, the chat is correct. We had even talked about this, is that some LA Galaxy personnel, whether it was Jovan Karofsky or Chris Klein, were reportedly down in Argentina this year. All right. Now, I was told that didn't go well and nothing came of that. Okay. That's what I heard. There was nothing there.
And Boca does have a reputation for being a little bit more of the disagreeable sort in regards to transfers.
Yes, and so yes, I think the LA Galaxy went there to possibly see if there was anything that they could do to sort of get this possibly, and maybe they were willing to take a risk on him with the allegations and everything, or maybe eventually the allegations just were too much and they didn't want to go that. There was lots of rumors that the case was going to be dropped and it was going to go away. That it doesn't look like it's happened, despite I've seen people tweet it and talk about it. I've just never heard anything official from anybody I've talked to that yes, that's the case. So anyway, so that's where we put it. So yes, I believe the LA Galaxy were interested even this year. I just think that by that time Boca had already sort of soured the water with all that stuff. I remember talking to people during the negotiations before, and they were like, it's just a nightmare trying to deal with them. There's too many people making decisions, and there's too many like, oh yeah, we'll agree to that, and then they come back, no, we're not going to agree with that.
And partial contracts and third ownership, which really have complicated matters. Going back to the days when Tevez was sold to West Ham, so that doesn't make things a little easier. I don't know, Josh. I mean, I see the body language of Greg Vanny when asked about this and on these press calls and these Zoom calls. I just don't think his heart is in it. I don't think he's interested.
He doesn't sound like he's interested.
And he doesn't want it. And that's just my opinion. I don't see him wanting that kind of player. You look at the roster that they have. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it might be wishful thinking. And all these twidiots out here saying that Pavon's on his way based upon
nothing.
You know what? It's
nothing.
Incredible.
Wins.
Pure fiction.
Yeah, there's a lot of pure fiction out there. That's what happens. I think somebody was linked to an RSL account. Or an RSL player was like, oh, yeah, was that the one where they announced him as like, they're like, this account said, oh, well, he's going to be a DP and he's the replacement for Rusnak. Yeah. And like, I saw Trey who's in charge of the PR over there. Trey might even have a larger role now because he went away and he came back. But Trey was out there going, could we get any journalists in there like to do something? And I just wrote back and I was like, congratulations on the DP, Trey. Right. And he was just like, no, right. The whole deal. So, So yeah. I mean,
let's play best case scenario here, Josh.
Right.
Let's say with the rape allegations and the case comes to its surmise.
Right.
And it ends in a fashion that the Galaxy could sign him.
Right.
Would they want to sign him? And where would he fit in the scheme of this team?
I think he would sign.
Something you want right now?
I think he would sign him if you weren't already getting Costa, because then you have a winger and you could do basically the same thing you're going to do with Costa. I mean, there's a scenario where you sit there and say, listen, maybe a $5 million gamble on Costa is worth it if you get a $1.6 million Christian Pavon, and it's like you sort of balance those two things and say, okay, well, you get Sam Player and Pavon and a DP and Costa, and you sort of say, okay, well, there's enough talent there that something should happen. I mean, that's one of those things where you throw all the talent on the field and you say, go play now and see what happens, right? So I think there's some of that. By the way, David says, is doing business with River Plate easier than doing business with Boca? What are South American negotiations like in general? I was talking to, there was a guy who ran Time Warner Deportes, Pablo Urquiza, I think. Pablo
Urquiza.
Yeah. So
I just spoke to him today.
Did you? I love Pablo. He's great. But we used to have discussions all the time. He's from Argentina. And so we would have discussions all the time about different things. He was one of the guys who actually welcomed me into the TWC Deportes studio and showed me around. Great guy, just amazing, along with a whole bunch of the Deportes guys. And so we were talking about different things like that. And he was always like sort of hinting at the fact that it's always just, it's such a gamble and such a mess. And like, if you get stuff done, it's amazing that you're able to cut through everything. So, I'm not sure it would get any better. I don't know.
But I mean, we talked about the risk and the gamble with Costa. That's not the case, with a Pavon. So, should he become available It looked like it would be a mid-season acquisition and
possible league MVP, Christian. You put him in, and
that's
you're
the
like,
type of talent.
you know what you get. I mean, Costa could be that too. It's just more of a question mark of will he be. Christian Pavon has already been here, already shown it, already did it. That's why there is a want to go back to. And of course, we have talked about this many times on the show. Does it only have to be those two guys? Couldn't it be other people? Like it feels like there's a lot of like focus where there doesn't need to be focus sometimes. It's like there's a whole world of football. Yeah. You can pull it for anywhere you want, anybody you want. And so again, that's sort of the question. It's the opportunity cost. If you're going to spend $5 million signing Douglas Costa, which is the rumor, I don't know if that's true. Yeah. If you're going to sign $5 million to Costa, who are you missing that you could have signed for $4 million or $5 million or $6 million around that price that could have been a difference maker for the LA Galaxy? And why does it have to be Costa, who has a big question mark? Right?
I mean, it could have been Carlos Tevez, right?
He's apparently DC United. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, he's been linked to. He's got contacts with Losada there, who's the coach at DC, and he's out of contract with Boca. Had to wait for that contract to expire before he could even make a move because no transfer could be worked out with him.
Right.
So no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's
hey, all interesting, man. That's what it is. It's wacky season. It's wacky preseason.
Silly season.
It's the preseason. So your hopes are I mean, the Galaxy won a 4-0 preseason game. Everybody's like, so should I book my tickets for MLS Cup now? Is that how that should work?
Maybe you know, Josh, is funny because my feelings on where this team is in terms of my hopes for this season and how I regarded the offseason going. I've really done a 180 in the last 2 weeks for me personally. I don't know how you felt, but I mean, I was kind of down, and then I said, where's this big signing? Where is it? I mean, I'm waiting for it. We're all waiting for it to happen, right? Where is that, that big Beckham signing? Where, not necessarily, maybe that Keane signing, that Gerrard signing, whatever. And it just wasn't coming. But then slowly, the piece comes in with Delgado. You watch some of these performances in preseason. Yes, there are. It's not the finished article, but I feel a lot better than I did about 2 or 3 weeks ago about this team. I don't know. How are you seeing it?
I feel better. I will say this, and I've made this argument. I don't know whether I believe it, but I've said it enough times. I probably do believe it, that just the fact that you don't have the large amount of turnover in the offseason, that you have guys who are comfortable with each other, right? And that they're there. They know each other's positions. I mean, quite honestly, I asked Greg Vanny about Mark Delgado. He's a man. We're not going to call him Marky.
He's
Mark Delgado. Yeah, he's a grown man. More about Mark Delgado. And I'm like, how do you see him fitting in this offense so far? I mean, he's coming in. There's a lot of new pieces. And he was also like, yeah, but he knows how to play my system. And the guy who he pairs with the best that he did with in Toronto is Victor Vasquez. And Victor Vasquez is right there. He's like, he's just having to relearn my system a little bit. That's about it. And so there's that. Even bringing Mark Delgado in, there's a synergy with bringing him in, right? You're not bringing a guy in who doesn't understand what Greg Vanny wants, how he wants to play, or anything like that. So it's not like there's this huge learning curve. The learning curve is going to be on Costa coming in, quite honestly. It's going to be like, do the Galaxy adjust to him? Does he adjust to the Galaxy? Chicharito seemed like he was in great shape and looking really good. I know some people were worried about him coming off in the 60th minute and sort of just walking off and limping off after he got tackled, and it was a bad tackle. I think he's fine for right now. I haven't heard anything. So all those things, but just knowing the guy next to you, knowing what he's supposed to be doing, where you think he's going to be is such 90% of the battle, especially with Vanny, who's trying to run this system. So you integrate the few pieces that you're going to have in here. And if nothing else changes, Christian, I would always believe that a team that is young and got put together and has grown a year older together will be a better team that next year just because they've had more time to play with each other.
I see your point, and I totally validate your point. I mean, I completely agree with it. But there's also this school of thought, conversely, where, hey, this is a team that hasn't had a lot of turnover, and this is a team that didn't quite, frankly, meet their desired goal and wasn't good enough to make the playoffs in a year when they really should have, in my opinion, especially the way they started. So there is that other argument to it. Hey, this team wasn't good enough, but you haven't made the necessary changes to improve upon this team. You're sticking with something that wasn't good enough last year. What makes you think it's going to be good enough for this year? And that's where it kind of it feeds into that skepticism we were talking about with new arrivals coming in. So there is that kind of counter argument, which I can understand.
Right.
I tend to side more with what you're saying about this, where let's not forget. I mean, we had 17 new players, was it, last year?
I think about 17. There's people, we always argue it's like 15 or 17, but in that, it doesn't matter. It's right there.
17. Okay, can you imagine this? Chelsea Football Club, Manchester United, anybody, Juventus, 17 new players, a new head coach, and a predominant share of those 17 players are first teamers.
Yeah.
That is absolutely unheard of.
No, it
anywhere
is.
in the soccer world. I mean, it's incredible. So the amount of adjustment and changes and learning and cultural clashes and, the good Lord knows what the paperwork, that's not to be understated. So a year under their belt, year 2. And then now, this is a big point, though. This is a big, big year for Greg Vanney, a testing point for this team, his philosophy and his outlook. They need to come good this year.
Right. No. Hey, we'll see if it happens. See how it goes. All right. I think that about does it. I'm going to check real quick on just my my Costa tracker before I just want to see. I didn't. He's still just barely he's starting to hit the islands that sort of wrap down and touch South America there. Is
he in CONCACAF territory?
Yeah, he's very close to CONCACAF territory. I think one of those islands might be one of. My geography is not great. My oldest, by the way, would tell me exactly which country that is, and then laugh at me for not knowing. But that's fine as well. So that's where I'm seeing Costa again. The arrival we're expecting into Los Angeles is tomorrow, probably between 9 and 10. Head on over to the Corner of the Galaxy Twitter account at Galaxy Podcast, and we'll do our best to sort of usher you into that arrival as it happens.
Panda will be there
in the morning. Yeah, I'm sure. After he's done with Ontario, he's just going to go to the airport and camp out. He's going to go to the Ontario airport though. He's at the wrong airport. That's the problem. So we'll see if we can get him back there. All right, Christian, is there anything else you want to touch on before we let you go?
Nope. I've talked till I'm blue in the face. So
well, that's always a good thing. That's how it works here. Tell people where they can find you, and we'll get on out of here.
At C Miles Sports on Twitter, kind of all over the place. And join us this year on Radio Commentario on the Galaxy Stream, lagalaxy.com, where you can check it on YouTube. I'll be teaming up with the irrepressible, brilliant Joe Totino this year, kind of chopping and changing and subbing in for Kobe Jones, but really looking forward. 20 more days, Josh.
20 more days.
Yes.
20 more days. All right. Thanks, Christian. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at jguesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Our podcasts, videos, post-game media availability is up there on the website as well. You can watch the full media call, and I mean full media call. I don't edit it because that would take time, and I don't want to do that. So full media call is available for your cornerofthegalaxy.com. All right, I think that does it. Filling in for the Panda, who was out at the Ontario Fury game, it's Christian Miles. I'm Josh Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.